All right, very good morning, everybody, from the flight deck once again, or from the ground next to the flight deck here. And welcome to another Pilot's Life Chapter 2 stream with me, Captain Nabs. Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's been a little while since I've had a chance to do this, so I want to thank everybody for having patience with me when I was not streaming as often as I possibly could and should be, but there's a number of reasons for that. The first and foremost, of course, of which is summer. It's just a beautiful time of year. It's way too short-lived in Canada, anyways, where I hail from. So you try and take advantage of it as much as you can. So I did have a couple days off last week, and I took a little bit of vacation time, and we'll talk about that once we get going. But it was very pleasant. It was very nice to get some vacation time. Of course, that meant that there was no streaming. I was not actually at home. I was away on vacation, and so of course streaming never didn't happen for that reason. So yeah, it's a little bit challenging to try and find time to stream in the summer, but in a good way. In a good way. Like I don't get a whole lot of time to really kind of relax and unwind in this life. So at least 1 week out of every summer I just try to take, and we go and just to try and unwind and just get out of the rat race for a little bit, because it feels like we're trapped in it 24/7, especially even post-COVID. During COVID, just felt like the rat race just never ended. Anyways, today we are on a bit of a relaxed schedule because we have a relatively short flight today in our Boeing 737-700. As you can see here, we got the shorty model today. We got the 700 series today, so a little bit shorter than the 800. And it's not just a little bit shorter; it's noticeably shorter. It is quite a smaller aircraft. Still plenty of people in there. Still put 140, 150 people in there, but it is noticeably smaller than the 800 series. But anywho, today we got a pretty short flight on our hands. We are leaving Seattle here, as you can probably see on the sign on that distant jet bridge there. Seattle SeaTac is where we're parked right now, and we are going to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So it's not a very far flight. It is 400 miles, I think, here. Somewhere here it says it, 538 miles. So it's not a far flight. We should be able to do it at about an hour and a half fare time. So about 2.5 hour stream, and we'll get there. So it's not a very long flight. It's not like going to Chicago and back. It's kind of nice, actually. It's a little bit relaxing to have a little bit of a shorter leg on our hands here. So I'm happy to have that happening here. I see one of my friends here, Khaled Miller, is over here on an Oakland to Seattle flight. And yeah, otherwise that's what we're doing. So we're going to go to Jackson Hole. We're going to come back from Jackson Hole back to Seattle. And then the last end of this season 2, this end of Pilot's Life Chapter 2. I don't even know what season this is. I think this is season 9, or maybe this is even season 10. It might be season 10, actually. All the way up to Anchorage and back will be the last leg, anyways. Regardless of what episode and season it is, that's what comes after Jackson Hole. We come back to Seattle and we do an Anchorage turn. So again, getting a little bit longer there. You're getting into the 3-hour range. So this is going to be a little bit of a nice summer break, I think, for us today. It's just a short flight. So yeah, we'll get that in. We'll get that done, and we'll get underway here shortly. So of course my departure time is completely off. Anyways, we're going to target to be off the gate by about half past the hour. I think that's a very reasonable target. All right, so let's hop in that flight deck and get this thing going here. So we push the button the right way. Flight recorder checks. All right, and yeah, so we'll get this flight underway, and yeah, I do have to apologize as well. There was another reason why streaming has not had to happen for a week or so, and that is that I did have an issue with my computer, as some of you may have seen in my Discord, and it was, to say the least, very frustrating to try and deal with. So I had a hard drive fail, and it was the hard drive that had the boot sector. So it wasn't actually the hard drive that had Windows anymore, but it previously had held Windows, and I'd kept it in my computer because I'm like, well, here's still a half terabyte. I moved Windows onto an SSD, but here's an old half a terabyte hard drive. It doesn't hurt to have extra hard drive space. What I didn't realize, of course, not thinking about it, was that that drive still contained the boot sector. That was still the booting drive, and eventually it failed. I'm not too overly upset by that. Mostly because of the fact that hard drive was dated March 2006. So this is a 17-year-old hard, or sorry, March 2008? 2008 or 2006. Anyways, it's 15, 17-year-old hard drive. It's been in my computer working for most of that time. It's served its time. I'm not too concerned about a decade and a half old hard drive failing me. It was just it created a whole bunch of awkwardness because then Windows refused to boot because of course the boot sector was missing, and trying to repair it turned into a very long ordeal. And unfortunately, that I think was symptomatic of some other problem with my computer, which is a bit frustrating. Again, there's something going on with my computer. I'm not sure what it is. But something is kind of going a little bit oddly glitchy with my computer lately. I've gotten very occasional intermittent blue screens of death, and I thought maybe replacing the hard drive would do it, but I've gotten it at least once since then, so that did not completely fix the issue. So I'm not sure what the issue is here. And actually, the one thing I've realized here is that GSX is not running for some reason here. And actually, that is something else that I kind of noticed has happened a couple times. Is that GSX does not seem to want to play nice with the sim here. Alright, I think now it's going to work. So there was a whole big ordeal because of replacing the hard drive. I reinstalled Windows. There we go. Now it's coming up. I had to reinstall Windows completely and everything that goes with it. So I did do a test run of this stream the other day, and everything seemed to work. I think I've got almost everything back to where it should be. But if there are any glitches as we get going here, I apologize in advance. What's very odd is that something keeps opening Explorer windows on me here too. And I'm not sure what it is. It's very odd. Anywho, yeah, let's get this show going here. So let's call over the fuel truck.
Refueling truck is on its way. Please don't load aircraft until the fuel truck arrives and ask to do it.
I'm not sure why, but something keeps trying to launch Explorer windows on me now. And this is something that just started now. I don't even know what's going on here. It's very, very frustrating. Something that's running is trying to do it. Let's start setting up.
Roger.
Don't take the stupid thing away. Oh my god.
Fuel truck is in position. Please don't load aircraft until the Please use your airplane fuel system to set the desired fuel quantity.
Well, we're going to do our best with this. If this thing continues to have issues, so be it. As long as it's manageable, we'll just keep on carrying on. Yeah. It's very frustrating. I had my system tweaked very much the way I liked it. I had everything kind of set up nicely for myself. And 15.3, and having to reinstall Windows, and thus having to reinitialize Flight Simulator and everything else that goes with it has been very, very time consuming and periodically frustrating. So, yeah. All right. Anywho, but yeah, let's get the show on the road. And what I realize, of course, is that I'm not here to show you my exasperated face. Yeah, even my overlay, I've had to retweak it ever so slightly. Most of it managed to import successfully, but a few things did not work out the way they had. And I think I'm a little bit bigger on the screen than I used to be. The webcam here was one of the things that did not properly register, so maybe I might just make myself just a little bit smaller there. There we go. Anywho, let's get this show on the road here. It's not a long flight, but we still want to get going at some point. So let's go ahead and grab a GPS location and start initializing our IRS. All right, there we go. And is it instant IRS or not? And here's the thing: like I've had to reinstall a number of things. So there is something that I didn't really realize last time, was that we have fast and I like realistic. All right, I think I've tweaked most of the rest of these options, but I forgot that one option. So next time it will initialize at a realistic rate. All right, in the meantime, let's go ahead and go through the overhead panel a little more. Actually, no, let's go and set up the flight, and then we'll go through the overhead panel here. Wow, I feel just like, I feel out of it. I feel I'm not entirely happy with, sounds like the stream's going to be an adventure. Yeah, I'm not entirely happy with everything that's going on my computer right now. Yeah, and I don't know why it keeps launching Explorer windows. It just keeps launching just Explorer windows at random. I keep on closing them. Let me just try closing everything here and just see if that does it. Because something is trying to launch Explorer and I don't even know what. You can't even tell. It's not launching any particular folder. It's just launching it generically in the quick access folder. So I don't even know what's launching it. At least if it went to a certain folder, I might understand what's trying to launch it. But nope, it's not even doing that. So yeah, it's been a bit of a trial, just trying to kind of get stuff up and running again. So I would have done a stream earlier this week, but I figured I needed to do a test run. I need to do one proper test run to make sure that it was that everything was working properly with my stream, with my software before I would try to stream on it. And I did actually find a few glitches. There were a few things that were not quite working properly. Even GSX does not seem to start automatically the way it should. So there were a few things that I discovered. Obviously, I missed at least a few things along the way. So we're going to keep on trying. We'll just bear through it. You know, at the end of the day, it's a hobby. It's not. You know, this is not a professional operation. I try to be as professional as I can, but at the end of the day, certainly as far as the sim's concerned, it's a hobby. I'm just streaming it here for fun, kind of keep you guys entertained, and if stuff goes wrong, well, so be it. We deal with it as it comes here. So let's see here, SeaTac. Let's see here, SeaTac, airport information, departing 34 right. All right, so we're going to depart 34 right, and we don't have any RNAV SIDs, so we're just using the straight up Seattle 8 departure today. We're just going to basically get turned over the mountains now. I don't believe we have any ATC unless I missed it. Yeah, nope. Still launching Windows. Why is it still launching Windows? Very frustrating. I'm looking at something, all of a sudden an Explorer window appears over top of it. Anyways, I will deal with that after the stream. I'm not going to stop the stream just because that is not a showstopper at this point. Annoying, but not a showstopper. All right, let's get our sim brief panel back up here, and there's our routing at the bottom there, Seattle 8, and then we go from the Seattle VOR. And in reality, we won't probably fly over the Seattle VOR because that's pretty close to the airport, but we'll probably go direct normie shortly after departure, once we've gained a little bit of altitude to make sure we're going to make it over all the mountains off to the east. J90.
Hi, the security and safety check are all done. Are we good to start boarding?
Go for it.
Thanks.
MWH. TOCUD. And let's see here, DNW. And then direct from there. So they're estimating landing on 1. I'll put in an ILS for 1, but as we get going here, we'll start. Or is there no ILS to 1? No, there's only the RNAVs to 1. Oh, beautiful. Love it. Okay. The Americans are backwards for some reason. They label their Zulu as their best approach. And as you go further back up the alphabet, they become less and less requiring special equipment. Anyways, we'll just put in the RNAV Yankee runway 01 as a compromise for now, and we'll look at it once we get going as more practical. All right, so direct DNW, and then after that, we got Discon, and we got JEFM01. So what I'll do is I will put KJAC back in there, just so it'll fly that route, and then at some point, we got this to look at on the map, we'll go direct to these waypoints. So we can activate and execute that route, and perfinit. So today our ZFW is expected to be 112.7. And our reserves, final reserve plus alternate 5.4. Cost index 24. And our cruise altitude today, 390. Don't have to carry as much fuel today, so we can go up pretty high pretty quickly. Weather. Average wind is 280 at 43 for this leg. And the temperature top of climb, minus 56, which is exactly what's predicted. So that's fine. And we can do our N1 limits. So today, hopefully this, my performance calculator, which is designed for the 737-700, should give me a more realistic number than it sometimes does. 3-4 right for departures. It looks dry out there. We'll do full length. Let's see here. What are the winds doing? Winds are calm. Outside air temperature of 14 degrees. Not the warmest day there, but I'm sure it'll probably pick up as the day goes on. 3014. Before I forget, let's switch this to imperial units. If I do flap 5 with air conditioning on, anti-ice off, and can I do a takeoff 2? So our takeoff weight today is being predicted at 128,000. It's pretty light. It's about 15, 20 tons less than we've done almost every other leg so far. So it looks like we can do a takeoff 2 for once. So we can almost never do a takeoff 2 because we're almost always too heavy. But today we can do takeoff 2. And we can T-rate to 38 degrees. That's with flap 5. Come on, push the button. Ugh. Flap 5. For some reason this button's very hard to press in this top left corner here. And I get similar speeds. I get a little bit higher speed, so we'll go with these ones that are generated by the FMS. The CFG will just automatically sub in from the information here, and I think we're just about ready here. All right. So the database, the box is all complete. Actually, the one thing I like to do now is I like to change the acceleration and thrust reduction altitudes to 1,000 feet as my default. All right. Perfect.
I'm back. There are no issues on the walk around. Good aeroplane.
All right, very good. And we're both going through the overhead flow at the same moment. You'd think it would take him longer to sit down, but apparently not. All right. And one thing I didn't do was an GSX to board.
Boarding requested.
Hopefully it doesn't take too long. It's quiet outside today. Nobody flying around Seattle today. All right, so there go those guys. Anyways, the real thing I want to know was the fueling done? So the fueling is done. How's the temperature in the cabin?
Do you want to board crew?
It's in the 70 range. It's actually pretty reasonable. Yeah, you can board everybody.
Starting.
It's actually very reasonable, so I won't even start the APU early here. It'll be fine. He just tested that. I love it. He's doing all this overhead flow for us. We'll just follow along and make sure he is doing it all correctly. We are going to need the APU bleed on eventually. 39,000 feet. Thank you. Jackson Hole landing altitude 6450. That sounds about right. Valves all the way open. Auto. Lights. He's got the ignition set to right. It's kind of nice to actually follow along and actually see exactly what he's doing as he's doing it. All right. Altimeter
starting.
3014. That sounds familiar, but I'm just going to pull it up again here. WX. Just in my vPilot window.
Glide slope. Pull up. Wind shear.
I thought
Wind
I stopped
shear.
him from doing this,
Wind
but
shear.
apparently not.
Terrain. Pull up. Airspeed low. Sink rate. Pull up.
Pre-flight supplemental
Terrain.
procedure.
Pull up.
That's the one I want to
Don't
check.
sink. Don't
Because
sink.
otherwise he goes through the
Too low.
whole
Terrain.
GPWS test. It's
Too low.
very
Air.
long.
Too
I'd
low.
rather he not do
Flaps.
that. So
Too low. Terrain.
3015 is actually the altimeter here in Seattle.
Bank angle.
According to the latest METAR.
Minimums 2,500.
Your crew has
1,000.
boarded. Passengers boarding
500.
starting.
400. 300. 200. 100. 50. 30, 20, 10.
Wind shear. Wind shear. Wind shear. Too low. Terrain. Caution. Terrain.
There's no need to run the long test on that every single time we get in the airplane, buddy. All right. So, and this is what I'm talking about, like things I think I fixed or settings that I think I've adjusted, but I haven't quite got all of them. But I'm slowly finding them. I found most of them, I think, on the test stream earlier this week. Anything that I've missed, well, we're going to find it together.
Hi, here's the fuel slip.
Thanks.
The trouble is that these
Have a nice
add-ons
flight.
are so complex that you know, very often you'll miss a setting or two. It's very easy to do. There's just so much going on with these add-ons. GSX and FS2 crew, they're so complex. And that's part of the joy, part of the what am I trying to say? Part of what makes them so good is the complexity, the depth of them. But when you have to reconfigure everything again because things did not go according to plan, that's a lot of stuff to do sometimes. Alright, 22.8 is set for Unicom. Company station will be set on number 2. And we'll go to the transponder code of 2000. I would actually test the aileron and rudder trim, except for the fact that it's a pain in the butt to do it. You can actually test the rudder trim pretty easily because the indicator's right there, but the aileron trim, the indicator's way up here, so to try and press that switch in the sim with your mouse and look up here at the same time and monitor its reaction is kind of very challenging to say the least. Alright, anyways, I think we're ready. Pre-flight checklist.
Pre-flight checklist. Oxygen.
Tested 100%. Tested 100%.
Tested 100%. Navigation, transfer, and display switches. Normal, auto. Window heat. On. Pressurization mode selector. Auto. Flight instruments.
Heading 152. Altimeter 3015.
Heading 152. Altimeter 3015. Parking brake.
Set.
Engine start levers.
Idle. Sorry, cut off. Cut off.
Pre-flight checklist completed.
Are you ready for the takeoff briefing? Are you ready for the departure briefing? Are you ready for the departure brief?
Go ahead.
All right. So it's pretty... Nope, not that one. That's the wrong button. That one. All right, so it's a pretty straightforward departure today out of Seattle. Nothing technical on the airplane. Everything works today the way it's supposed to. Nothing unusual going on. And we're doing the Seattle 8 departure. All right, so this is on plate 20-3 Foxtrot for Seattle, Washington SeaTac. Radar required between the hours 2200 to 0600. All right, so that's not the case right now. And runway 34 right, climb heading 341, and on Seattle radial 341. Top altitude as assigned by ATC. So let's just see if that's in the box correctly here. So 344 track and then 341 heading. It's not quite totally correct. So let's pull up the Seattle VOR 116.8 and let's see if we can't fly this correctly. 116.8. We'll back it up on number 2. And we are supposed to fly Seattle radial 341. Set course on your side 341.
341 set.
All right, so there's the Seattle VOR 341 radial. So we're going to turn around. We're going to take off this way once we get airborne. Can we do it this way? Yeah, once we get airborne, it's a slight left turn to actually get to the 341 radial. So we'll take off initially in heading mode. And through 400 feet, we'll start a gentle left turn and engage VOR loc mode and intercept that outbound track until we climb up to a reasonable altitude. We're going to make sure we have terrain on for this departure today because there is high terrain to the east of the field. The MSA is 6,400 to the east, so we won't turn east till we hit at least 6,400, and then we'll start turning eastbound. Yeah. The taxi out from the gate here for departure 34 right is pretty straightforward. We're just at the north edge of the main terminal here, so we're just going to go out through this aisle here, head down Bravo to get to the threshold of 34 right. There's no hotspots along that route. The one hotspot there, Quebec, it appears to be on Quebec and not actually on the Bravo taxiway itself. Yeah, that's about it. So terrain, again, to the east is where most of the terrain is. If we have any kind of major engine failure, we continue straight ahead, bear slightly to the left out over the sound. Weather is a beautiful day here in Seattle. It was dreary and rainy last time when we landed here, but it's a beautiful day today. Operational, no MELs, no NOTAMs, I believe that affect the operation, but actually I haven't looked very carefully. So let's have a quick look at the Seattle NOTAMs and just make sure nothing is going to impact our operation today. I pulled up the real-world ATIS there for 3-4 right, so it's got to be a somewhat realistic plan there. VOR test is unserviceable, microburst dissection system's unserviceable, and approach procedures.
1018, taxis runway 34 right.
That's actually a very surprisingly small number of NOTAMs today, so that's actually pretty good. Yeah, so no NOTAMs, and yeah. It's basically an event of an abnormality prior to V1. I'll call continue trajectory. Into trajectory immediately select thrust levers to idle. Observe apply max braking and apply max reverse thrust. And I'll monitor brake response and thrust reversers and call 70 and then advise ATC. If the event of an fare after V1 will continue to take off, rotate normally and to 12.5 degrees and once airborne, follow the FD commands. And above 400 feet, we'll secure the engine. Above 1,000 feet, we'll accelerate level flight to retract the slop and flaps and continue the climb. And that's basically all I got. Questions? Any questions?
No questions.
All right, so we're just waiting for the boarding to finish here. We should be getting underway in the next couple of minutes. We should get that APU going here. That helps to get the fuel pump on as well for that.
Hi guys, here's the load sheet for you.
Thank you.
No problem. Have a safe flight.
All right, we get the APU up and running here, and we'll be just about ready to go. I don't know how much more GSX has to board.
If you are unable to accommodate any item in the cabin, please bring it to the boarding door and we will check it for you. Also, review the safety instruction card in your seat pocket.
Now, I believe there was some news that GSX had come up with a new feature they were going to offer, which is actually putting the passengers in your airplane. So if we were to, just get ourselves in the airplane here. Here come all of our passengers. But as soon as they get in the airplane, they disappear. Where did they all go? And that's the fun part. Here they all come, but where do they all go? So apparently what the next innovation that GSX has come up with now is that they are actually going to put the passengers in your airplane. So if you open the flight deck door or go back into the cabin, you're actually going to see the passengers in your airplane. I love that you even see them go around that door. Like from here even, it's a relatively realistic view. Obviously people are clipping right through me here, so I should try to stand to one side. And watch people come down the bridge. But yeah, that apparently is the next innovation, which is actually kind of good, because a lot of time you this adds a sense of reality, seeing a bunch of people coming down and getting on board, but then the reality kind of breaks when you go inside the airplane, and there's a lot of seats, but they're all empty. There's nobody in there. So
yeah, traffic Southwest 3405, taxi 34 right, following the Alaska traffic.
That'll be a nice change as well. So, anywho, hopefully these guys are done soon here. I did tweak the settings again, and this is something else that I've been trying to. Now I can't seem to get GSX to. Open the menu there, but I have been tweaking this. I haven't turned the.
All packs are on board. Are we clear to close?
See, I disagree with that idea because it doesn't look like they're all on board. there it is. GSX settings. And timings. Come down very tense. So that way they board even faster. It's a simplistic animation, but like at the same time, like, you know, creating walking people that look somewhat realistic is actually pretty difficult. So you know, my hat's off to FS Dream Team for what they've managed to accomplish here with all these, with all their little add-ons here. It's not perfect, you know, like this woman who's walking a little faster walked right through the other one. But the fact that they can come down this jetway, and they are pretty much walking on the floor of the jetway at the appropriate angle, getting in the airplane, turning around the door, it's remarkably well done. Oh, and then the jet bridge is going away. Okay, so there's the end of that. The only trouble is when, yeah, there it is. The only trouble is when the add-ons don't talk to each other. How many people are reporting? I wish GSX would announce. I think it will announce if I turn the setting verbosity up. The message verbosity up. Display only important messages. Display all messages. Then I think it'll give me an update. 144 of 163. There you go. I find that's too much though. There's just too many messages. I would like to know who's coming. All right, but we're almost done there. We'll just stop looking out the window at the people just walking in space. But again, like it seems like a simplistic job, but to try and make this actually like work, like with the animation, like if you had a glass jet bridge, it would look like these people 100% were walking down the glass jet bridge. You'd see them from in the flight deck. To make that kind of, maybe this guy's the last guy, you know, with the variability that exists at different airports, the fact that they can do this, that they can make this animation look as realistic as it does, conform to different patterns, that's I find is the challenge and the beauty of GSX, is that regardless of the randomness of the airport that you're at, there's some consistency to it, but they've managed to script it in a way that it works. All right. Thanks. It will be a short taxi.
Thanks. Let me know if you need anything.
Before start, checklist.
Time 33, Boston 2200 on climb, summer 2 departure.
Smoking is not permitted in the cabin or lavatory. Cabin lights will now be turned off. Reading light buttons are located above your seat. Thank you for your attention.
I guess it helps if I get the AP generators on first. Oh, I'm so out of sync with this airplane. Oh, I'm ashamed of myself here. Let's see here. So FS actions, ground services, we can even remove the chocks. And that'll get everything going here. Before start checklist.
Before start checklist. Flight deck door closed and locked. MCP.
Speed 133, heading 152, altitude 5,000. Speed 133, heading 152, altitude 5,000. Altitude 5,000.
Takeoff speeds.
V1 128, VR 129, V2 133. V2 133.
CDU pre-flight.
Completed. Completed. Completed.
Rudder and aileron.
Seattle traffic Southwest 3405.
Checked in 0.
Right, Seattle.
Free and 0.
Taxi and takeoff briefing.
Completed.
Anti-collision light on before start checklist complete.
I forgot to call for the pushback and departure first. All right, let's get our flight number in here anyway. 766.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
All right, they're ready for pushback. Get the transponder to on. The beacon's on. All right, and we can set the trend while we're waiting here. Takeoff trim.
Completed. Bypass pin inserted.
Alright, 5.5. Come on, drive the tug over. There she comes. Just gonna ignore it because it's gonna be kind of sliding sideways. And Hayden UK, good morning, welcome to the stream. We're having some fun, having a few issues here with my computer, but it's not too bad today. Hopefully it survives the stream. And I do have to apologize in advance. If I disappear off stream at some point, it's because unfortunately I did probably trigger a blue screen of death. I haven't had one now in about a week, but something is still not quite right with my computer, and I've checked up various things. I've checked a couple of hard drives. I've run a full mem test, not the memory. I'm kind of down to, it could be the motherboard, it could be my video card, but it's so intermittent. This is the trouble.
Release parking brakes, please.
All right. Brakes are off, ready for pushback. Lane and start till advised.
All engines clear. Start at will.
All right, let's just see that first of all. Ground speed 1 knot, so it looks like the overlay is working properly up there at the top. Good, 2 knots, good. Yeah, the trouble is I very, very, very intermittently get the blue screen of death now, like once a week. So I haven't really been able to figure it out. I think it could be the video card because it seems to happen certainly when the processor is more overloaded. It's definitely not the memory. I did a full memory test. Not a single error came up on the memory test. So it's not the memory. It could be the old graphics card because it's getting pretty old. Could even be that the power supply maybe is falling. But it seems like I was monitoring the voltages and they all seemed like rock solid. And then of course you suddenly get this blue screen of death and you can't see what was the problem before it. Just even the error code changes every single time. So very inconsistent. Very hard to track down. Start sequence is 2 then 1.
Check.
Start engine 2.
Starting engine 2.
Yeah, nothing like trying to track down an intermittent hardware error in your computer. It's like when you get like an intermittent problem in your airplane and you try and get the mechanics to solve it. Well, every once in a while you get the hydraulic light comes on for a second then goes away, or you just get some kind of weird glitch or the screen just flips off for a second and flips back on again. It happens, a couple times in a flight, but it's very intermittent. It's very hard for the mechanics to chase this stuff down. They're looking all over the place. They're trying to, sort of see all the obvious suspects, but oftentimes it's something like a loose connection somewhere. Trying to diagnose a loose connection in an airplane is just, there's hundreds of miles of wire.
Please set parking brakes.
Hundreds of miles of wiring in this airplane.
Cockpit to ground. We have a good engine start. You can disconnect.
Brakes are set. Yeah, hundreds of miles of cockpit of wiring in this airplane. Probably thousands of different connectors between different wiring harnesses and different components.
Number 2 is stable.
Start engine 1. Start engine 1.
Starting engine 1.
So trying to sometimes catch some of these intermittent faults can be very, very challenging.
Oil pressure.
It makes me think there was a case. There was an Airbus that
Unlocking gear.
they had a computer fault. One of the flight control computers. I can't remember which one. I think it was like a SEC or something. And it just kept on coming up. And like it would be fine all through climb. They'd level off and cruise, and it would happen once. And they'd do the reset, and then 5 minutes later it would happen again. And then 2 minutes later it happened again, and 1 minute later it just kept on happening more and more and more. It just gets very frustrating. But like it keeps on resetting, comes back, and then but it comes back so frequently then that it becomes very annoying. But then they go land, and the guys, the maintenance guys, they run the test on the system every single time, and it passes the test just fine, and they sign it off. And this airplane in particular had some other issues, and it actually ended up turning into a crash. But what they found was it was just one loose soldering connection.
Number 1 stable.
On the SEX connector, and so it was intermittently losing contact and would reset every time it intermittently lost contact. It was, but it was, maintenance had been chasing this down for like a month, and it kept happening for a month, and it passed the test every single time they do the ground test. Flaps 5. I feel for the mechanics at that airline, trying to chase these little ghosts that don't appear when you're sitting there staring at them, and then all the pilots are talking about it. I feel for these guys. I feel for the mechanics trying to figure this out. Flight control check. Flight control check.
Ready.
Full left. Full right. Center. Full up. Full down. Center. Rudder. Full left. Full right. Center. Flight control check complete. Center. Flight control check complete. After start checklist. Before taxi checklist.
Before taxi checklist. Generators on, propane on, anti-ice off, isolation valve, auto, engine start switches, continuous, recall.
Checked.
Checked. Auto brake, RTO. Engine start levers.
Idle detent.
Flight controls.
Checked.
Ground equipment.
Clear.
Clear. Before taxi checklist complete.
Clear left.
Clear right.
Seattle traffic, Alaska 766 is at the terminal. Will be taxiing Bravo for departure 34 right. Alright, just a little brake check. Definitely worked, good. Now that we're moving, alright, overlay does appear to be working properly. Doesn't know how long it's going to take us to get to Jackson Hole, but it does say we have a ground speed. The heading is slowly shifting as we turn, so that all appears to be working properly. The other thing we want to check, of course, is to make sure that a pilot's life recognizes that we are moving here. Usually you have to move a couple hundred feet before it recognizes that you're moving. First stage taxi out, it thinks we're in the taxi out phase. I'm going to move that out of the way so I can see what I'm doing here, but it seems to think we're in the taxi out phase, but it just hasn't shown a single movement yet. Give it a moment here and it'll show us a movement. Anonymous. Anonymous friend. But this was one of the suggestions I did have for a pilot's life. There it is. Now let's see, it shows us we started there. We've definitely moved through the terminal area that much, so I'd say we're good. The tracking is working. Yeah, there was, what am I trying to say here? I can't think now. Yeah, I did have one suggestion, and that was, I thought with the generate schedule option, they only have 3 categories. They have short, medium, and long haul flights, and it doesn't even specify anywhere what the specific delineations are.
Okay, thanks. Captain, the cabin is secure.
What constitutes a short, a medium, or a long-haul flight, you know, by a pilot's life's definition. I would love it if instead of just defining short, medium, long-haul, you could request legs between a certain length. So, you know, you could have a pair of sliders, you know, minimum leg length of 200 miles, maximum leg length of 1,000 miles, or whatever you want to do. Because I find that the medium haul, it gets quite long. The medium haul, I think, goes up to like 2,000 miles. I find the 2,000 mile trips are long, but the short haul only goes up to like 600 miles. So I wouldn't mind like a 1,000 mile trip in a lot of cases. It's about a 2-hour trip. That's fine. But the 2,000 mile trips, on the other hand, are quite lengthy and end up being very long streams. My voice, of course, I think, is, those of you that have been watching this for a while know, my voice will give out before I reach the end of the stream. So normally I'd think about doing FSLTL at this point, but I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to kind of I'm going to kind of what am I trying to say here? I'm going to try and keep the strain a little bit off the processors, just to kind of guarantee this is going to work. I'm still a little bit shy. I'm excited to get going and do some simming and do some flying, but at the same time, like I said, I'm a little bit shy that something might fail again on me here. So I'm trying to keep it relatively keep the load off. So we won't do FSLTL, we won't do the traffic from FSLTL. It makes Seattle look very empty not having any traffic here, but so be it. So there's just have one more look at the pilot just to make sure nobody popped up. Nope, nobody popped up. I'm just gonna see if I can Google something here. Nothing obvious, you know, beyond the obvious things. And I did reboot my computer before I started this stream, so nothing really should have been running that wasn't part of this whole sim. So something that I started up here is what keeps on triggering this to run. And you can see it popping in here every so often now. It's opened up like 10 windows at least since in the time I've been sitting here talking. So every like 3 minutes it seems to open up another Explorer window. I'll try to reboot and see what happens. But not now. Before takeoff checklist.
Before takeoff checklist. Flaps.
Flaps 5, green light.
Stabilizer trim.
5.6 units.
Before takeoff checklist complete.
You can see that little white screen. There's something about this white screen too. It's like when you look at certain screens at certain angles, it comes up. So I don't know if it's like trying to highlight the screen. I thought that for a while there, I thought it looked like it's trying to highlight the screen. Maybe I'm just making stuff up. Maybe I'm just seeing things, but that's what it looked like to me, at least briefly. Seattle traffic, Alaska 766, take position runway 34 right for departure. Runway entry procedure.
Okay. Cabin crew, take your seats. Clear on the approach.
Clear left.
Ready to go. Clear right.
Alright. Runway 34 right. Auto thrust on. Here we go. Takeoff.
Thrust
N1
set.
Toga.
Checked. $80 knots.
Roger.
V1. Rotate. Positive right.
Gear up.
Gear up. $400 feet.
Select VOR Loc.
VNAV.
I asked for it, but anyhow. There's VOR Loc. Flaps 1.
Speed check.
flaps up.
Flaps 1 set. Speed check.
Select Command
Flaps
A.
up set.
Select Command A.
Autopilot on. Autopilot off. Autopilot on.
After takeoff checklist.
After takeoff checklist, engine bleeds, on, packs, auto, landing gear, up and off, flaps, up, no lights. After takeoff checklist complete.
Well, it's not quite what I wanted him
The
to
cabin crew? 1011.
go for it.
Okay.
Wasn't quite what I wanted him to do. So what I wanted him to do was I wanted to select VOR LOC, not VNAV. I wanted to continue climbing in VNAV. I was going to get flight level change in there in a minute, but anywho. And of course I realized that the heading was not right the whole time. We're still set on our gate heading, so. Alright, learn from your mistakes. I made a few errors. I'll try and fix those in the future. Alright, we're almost at 6,500, which means we're almost ready to take our right turn and climb over those mountains. And then we can also accelerate. There's no point accelerating if we're not, there we go. If we're not actually turning on course, so I might as well just climb. So now we've climbed, now we can go direct normie. Get ourselves an LNAV mode there. Once we've turned on course, we can kill the speed intervention. Alright, I won't tell anybody that you're at work, but howdy, and be silent. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in, even if it's only for a few minutes. I hope you enjoy what you see here. I feel very out of practice with this airplane. I haven't flown it very much lately. We keep on doing all these long legs, and then I don't fly it again for like another week and a half till we do 2 weeks till we do another stream. So I don't know that I'll get a stream in next week, but I'm hoping maybe, and it's possible, I have yet to see exactly what's going to happen, but maybe not this, maybe at the end of next week on the weekend, we may even get a stream. And we may be able to do like a long stream and do like a double stream. We'd have to go from Jacksonville back to Seattle, then up to Anchorage. I was thinking I might be able to squeeze those both in one leg. All right, there's 10,000.
Happy to release the cabin.
Go for it.
Okay.
Looks absolutely beautiful out there. Let's just zoom out here and make sure there's no high terrain in front of us, but the high terrain is over there. 14,300, but we're already 10.7, and we're just accelerating now to our climb speed of 281. Once we do that, we'll be moving again here. So everything's off. He's got the seatbelts off. The other thing you want to check as you go up through 10,000 is you want to check the pressurizations of the cabin. Altitude should be increasing at this point. It is very slowly increasing. And even as I speak, it starts to increase at a higher rate. So we've reached that point where the differential gets high enough that it starts to climb at a higher rate. And there's the cabin climbing at 500 feet per minute now. It's very reasonable though. Differential's at about 4.5, and the cabin's just climbing through about 1,500 feet. That's great. And the other thing you want to do at 10,000 feet as well is get guard up. 21.5. That way you can listen to all the cats meow. And the funny thing, I've made this comment to a number of people, and it is a very odd thing, but the only country where people goof around on the guard frequency is America. You go to any other country in the world, and nobody is goofing around. Nobody's making cat noises or silly comments on the guard frequency. But you go to America, and for whatever reason, people are goofing around on that frequency, and it frustrates a lot of people who want to try and keep this business professional. It's only a handful of people that are probably doing it. But no other country in the world you even have to like tell people not to do it. Say, hey, that's unprofessional. Everyone else just acts like professionals right off the bat. Like, yes, okay, we have a lot of time to kill up front. It can be boring sometimes, but you know, when you're keeping yourself entertained, don't do it on the guard frequency, because the trouble with that is that you annoy enough people start turning the guard frequency off. And then when somebody actually needs to be gotten a hold of on the guard frequency, people aren't listening anymore because they turned it off because they got tired of listening to people goofing off. So they stopped listening on that frequency altogether. And then, maybe they do miss a handoff. And they're no longer listening on guard frequency. They turned it down or turned it off because they didn't want to hear the goofing around. And then when someone's actually trying to get through to them with a legitimate message on the guard frequency, now people are not listening anymore. So not only is it unprofessional, but it also stops other people from being able to maintain their utmost professionalism. But it's funny because it's only in America. No other country around the world do people goof off on that frequency. Every other country, people will have a lot of respect for that frequency, but for some reason in America, and it's not everybody, I'm not trying to say everybody, most people in America are very professional, but there's a large enough percentage of people that figured out that, hey, this is a fun way to goof around while I'm supposed to be working here. It's very frustrating. Alright. Transition set standard.
Standard set. Passing flight level 187.
Alright, so let's check our prog page here. We're going to land at 16:17, just an hour and... Roger. An hour and 20 minutes from now, so it's not a long flight. It's a nice, very reasonable length flight. We'll have some time in cruise. We'll have a good half an hour, 40 minutes, half an hour in cruise at least to talk about stuff, but I'm not going to be struggling to talk about stuff and take a bathroom and a meal break after hour number 3 because it's a 4.5 hour flight. So I'm kind of enjoying this idea of just doing a shorter flight here. It's nice that just to be doing the shorter flight. And Jackson Hole is also a beautiful place to fly into. Absolutely beautiful scenery down there in Jackson Hole. So I'm also just looking forward to that aspect of it as well. So far, so good. Other than this Explorer glitch, I don't know what's going on with that. There are now like 12 Explorer windows open. And I keep on trying to close them periodically, but they just keep popping open anyways. I'll reboot my computer and see if it keeps happening. I'll run these things that I have all one at a time and see if it keeps happening. Because something is doing it. Something is calling the Explorer window. And I wish there was a way to track it. See what was actually calling it. All right. Even as we get going here, I'm just trying to think now, what are some of the things we can talk about? Pardon me. FSExpo came and went, and there was nothing hugely show-stopping there, but it was great to see that it was a successful event. Yeah, just trying to think here. Yeah, I think we pretty much talked about everything that transpired at FSExpo. I don't think there's anything too much. But I have to say, like, the one thing that was nice. I'm just trying to find my list of topics here, but yeah, the one thing that was nice was just I watched the interview that FS Elite did with Asobo and Microsoft regarding Flight Simulator 2024, and that was reassuring. That the way that trailer was released with so little context or background was very frustrating. Very frustrating. A lot of people have invested a lot of time, money in this hobby, and we all wanted to make sure. We all wanted to make sure that we had not wasted our time. That we were going to be, that we were going to be able to continue to use the products we'd already purchased. So, but to hear them talk about the ecosystem as a whole, was very reassuring. So I watched this interview like 3 weeks ago now, but I came away from it feeling very reassured that FS 2020 was not being left in the weeds and was going to be just abandoned, but rather, again, as I said, it's more like an ecosystem. Asobo originally made a commitment to support 2020 for 10 years. they said they'd commit to FS 2020 for at least 10 years, and they basically said the same thing with 2024 now, is that they are committed to 2024 for at least 10 years. So, that takes it to 2034 at least. So they are, I think when they use 10 years, I think they just use it as a horizon that is far enough away that they don't even really have to think about an end of life situation at this point. And I think that is kind of what they're going for. I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of what I kind of speculated a little bit in my stream 2 streams ago was kind of what came out in the message, was that, yeah, we're not abandoning FS 2020. You're going to continue to be able to use FS 2020. However, by launching a new simulator, it allows us to change and tweak certain things, change certain things about the way the architecture of the whole software works, and it allows us to, of course, add more missions. So I think, and that I think is the biggest thing. But they're not necessarily abandoning 2020 by any means. It just simply, they're just trying to make a pretty substantial change. It seems like the biggest change that really kind of required them to sort of move up to a new version was the idea of reducing the sim footprint, streaming more of the data and installing less of the data on your computer. So that seemed to be the big thing. I think they were also using it as an opportunity to certainly launch some new missions and engage with the community and get some more interesting stuff happening. But it seemed like the biggest thing was just trying to change that architecture, and that's the change that definitely would be hard to iterate, because we've already got all the stuff installed in our computer, and at what point do you suddenly say, oh, you don't need any of that anymore? You probably could iterate it through the existing versions, but it's a big enough change, substantial enough change, that they felt that it was worthy of a new number, and I think they're not totally wrong for it. But it was good to hear that certainly 2020 is not going to be fallen by the wayside, that most of the ideas that the basic systems themselves are going to all be in the background there. The key is that for the most part, there's going to be more available in the new Sims SDK that developers can access with things they talked about, like better soft body simulations and rope simulations and things like that, where if developers want to take advantage of them and extend their product and adjust their product to take advantage of these new features, they can. But if they don't, the old features are also going to be there, and that to me was what was important, was just making sure that, like, we were not going to be abandoned with our old software already. It's been, I've already invested way too much in the Sim platform to consider abandoning it very quickly. You'd have to make a very good business case for me to abandon it altogether. But if I can port over most of the products, most of the add-ons that I've already purchased, then that's a different story. Then that's fine. Uncle Wiki managed to test the Kuro 787 last night. Works good enough to be able to fly it on VATSIM. So that's always good to hear, that there's new airplanes out there. So the 787-8 mod version 2. So I'm just finding it here because honestly, I'd never heard of the Kuro 787, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I've always, I can't keep track of everything that goes on in this hobby. So I see things, and then but sometimes things just pass me right on by. So so it's a 787-8 that basically piggybacks off the Dash 10, which is great. It's nice to kind of use some of the assets that are available in the sim rather than start from scratch. And with the latest update with the 8.7, like I imagine that I haven't actually flown it. I haven't actually taken it out. I mean, there's so many airplanes in the sim that are available to you now all the time. It's hard to use them all. I saw the DC-3 was added in there, and I didn't probably open it up for 9 months because I don't have the time. There's lots of airplanes that I would like to fly, that I would love to try out, and certainly, the 8.7, if it's good now. I always shied away from default airliners because they used to be like, they were pretty. I think we can all agree they were pretty basic. And a modern airliner is not a basic aircraft by any means. So if you want to have a somewhat realistic simulation, it can be basic, but a lot of these things were. So just to look at it now, like, it looks really good. The real question is, of course, you can make things look good without actually making them have much interactivity and much background ability. But how it looks in the end, and how it reacts to everything you do is a whole, pardon me, is a whole other story. So, yeah, the Kiro mod includes the new model of the 787-8, largely based on the Asobo 787-10. Yeah, I would certainly be willing to try that. You know, for me, I still need to go higher end, but I have been willing to sort of give some of these airplanes a try. The other one that I downloaded, I fired it up to make sure it worked, but I haven't even really taken it for a flight, was the Headwinds A330. I think it's the A330-10 is the one. Or is it the 900? I haven't taken that one out yet, but the A330-900, sorry, that's the one. They have the 800 they're working on, but the 900 is the one that's available. Again, it's a freeware product. I haven't actually taken it out, but you know, it depends on what you want to do with the sim, and certainly there's a lot of these products that are good enough where you can fly them realistically, and as long as you can interact with the avionics realistically, that to me is the showstopper. If I can't even change the flight plan, so like when the original default aircraft all launched, like you could load a flight on the load flight screen, and you could specify a flight plan, but then once you got going, you couldn't really change it. You couldn't tweak the flight plan, you couldn't change the arrival or the runway. It was locked in, and the FMS would show you what was going on, but it wouldn't. You know, it wasn't actually really interactive. It was just a display. It wasn't really something you could interact with and actually modify the flight plan as you're going. And that was the kind of thing that I just couldn't get behind. You know, and like I said, I like to fly in VATSIM. And on VATSIM, you've got to be ready for changes. Dynamic stuff has to happen. Sometimes you're gonna have to change the arrival. You got to change the approach. If you can't do that after the sim is already launched, like you're just along for the ride. You're a passenger now. You're not even flying the airplane. You're just a passenger if you can't even change stuff change the flight plan as you're going. But yeah, it's good to see that a lot of people have kind of worked on improving these things, and even Microsoft, they saw a great thing in working title and they brought them on board and said, hey, you know, our avionics are okay, but they're not great. And we see you guys doing great stuff with them. How about you guys make our avionics great so we can focus on other things? I would love to know kind of how big the team at Asobo is that works on this. If you start to include like all the kind of like the full-time contractors, you know, working title, I'm not sure that they're part of, I don't think they got hired directly by Asobo. I think they're still kind of under contract, but they're being paid enough that it's a full-time gig. It's not like they built one airplane and walked away. Like they're being paid, at least it would appear to be, they're being paid to do a full-time gig because they are constantly working towards more updates. You know, we've had now 2 aircraft avionics updates. Basically, both of them are courtesy of Working Title. Working Title, you know, just taking what Microsoft and Asobo have built in terms of here's some screens you could look at and the processes, put them all together, but then making them interact in a realistic way, so that you can use them in a realistic way. That's what we want to see. That was the main thing for me too. The FMC makes it good enough that it's usable for changing things and holds, etc. I can't offset, still missing position report info for Oceanic, so you can't provide a pass-through report. Yeah, and that's surprising because like the position report info is pretty straightforward. Again, that's just sort of showing information. That's not even anything you really have to interact with. It's just having information available on a page within the FMC. So, but as long as you can change the navigation en route, there's 38 for 39. That's the part that you really kind of want to. That's the part you want to be able to interact with. Alright, so I'm going to get my PDF up here. We're about to level off, and at the same time we level off, we're about to pass this fix here. So don't hesitate too much on me here. Alright, so about to pass MWH. This is going to be our first and possibly our last position check. It's a short flight, so it's as much just a check up as anything else. Alright, stop launching Explorer windows. Alright, 3.7.
Ladies and gentlemen, in just a few moments we'll begin our meal service for the flight. Please refer to the menu given to you on boarding for the 2 meal choices and your beverage.
Alright, that's close enough. So we got 15, 10, and 11.4.
Aisle clear to assist the flight attendants to serve you efficiently and also for your own safety. Thank you.
Alright, so MWH. 15, 10, and 11.4. So we're actually up a little bit on fuel from where we planned to be. And let's just do these calculations so we can get them. We were actually planning to just level off just after MW8, so we're pretty close to on the plan there. 15, 34, 16, 5. So we should get to Jackson Hole 1628, which I think is pretty close to what the FMC is estimating. 1618 actually. Possibly with an approach in there. It's going to be pretty close anyways. All right. There we are. We're leveled off in cruise. Just a quick cruise scan. Make sure nothing untoward has happened in there, but I think everything looks pretty good. We got 22.8. It's going to get the transponder on because he loves to turn the transponder off while we're taxiing. And yeah, we can chat for probably about 20 minutes, and then we're already going to have to start setting up our arrival. So I'm just trying to see what other things I want to chat about. One thing that I did want to chat about a little bit, and it kind of came out, and I have again mixed emotions. Was FS2 crew released their 737, their PMDG 737 SOP number 2. So you know, right now we're operating PMDG 737 SOP 1. So there's a new version that came out called SOP 2, which apparently is much more in line with a typical low-cost carrier's SOP for operating the 737. The only thing that bugs me a little bit about it is just the fact that they're now charging it like it's a full separate add-on. So in the previous version, in the P3D world with the NGXU, I think we got not one, not two, but 3 SOP packs packed into one package. So you bought just one SOP pack. You bought the 737 SOP pack from FS2 crew, and it included 3 different SOPs. So you could pick which SOP you wanted to run that particular day, you know, based on your airline. Yeah, and I feel like that's. I don't feel like it's complete BS because I feel like they probably did put a lot of effort into it. They probably re-recorded almost all the audio. They said there's something like 20,000 audio files, which when you do, you know, 500 or 1,000 audio files, but then you multiply them by 5 or 10 different voices out there, yeah, it started ending up with a lot of audio files. I mean, I get that there's a lot of time and work invested in that, but I feel like I do tend to feel like it doesn't quite fully deserve a whole pack. And they are offering it at a discount, but the discount is not substantial. I think it's a $5 discount, so I think it's $25 instead of $30 for version 2. So yeah, I feel like the nickel and diming should be presuming different SOPs to begin with. I mean, the thing is, like, for none of their other aircraft do they offer multiple SOPs. The A320 Airbus SOPs, period. The Mad Dogs, there's one set of SOPs. For the 737, they have in the past offered multiple SOP versions, and that's fine. I just feel like, yeah, I feel like they're overcharging if they're charging full price for the pack. My take on it is that, okay, yeah, definitely there was time and effort invested, and definitely there was time and effort invested on making a second version. But I feel like, and maybe I'm not giving FS2 crew enough credit here. Like, I do like FS2 crew, so I hate to say stuff that's too disparaging, but I feel like in general, as they move along and release more products, they become better at it. They become more practiced at it. It gets easier. They understand the SDKs. You know, each subsequent release becomes easier than the one before. They've got their, you know, they've got their FS2 crew interface already set up with MSFS. So I feel like each subsequent pack that they've released, whether for this aircraft or for other aircraft, has taken less effort than the first one. Yes, there's still some development effort. Each aircraft has a different SDK, for sure. There's some development effort required. But I feel like, yeah, like each time they release a pack, they're coming out faster and faster, and I think it's because it takes less effort. So I would make the argument that probably for the 737 at least, there should be a substantial discount if you already own the first pack. And I'm not talking $5. I'm talking like, something on the order of like a 50% discount. So instead of $30, it should be, if you already own SOP Pack 1, it should be $15 for SOP Pack 2. Something along those lines. I'm not trying to belittle developers or dismiss their development process or their efforts as nothing. But at the same time, I feel like certainly if you bought the first SOP pack and they're making another pack for the same airplane, most of what they're going to be doing is fairly similar. You're going to be re-recording voice packs and things like that, but I just don't feel like there's going to be enough effort invested in the development that it should have been a full price. Like that one surprised me when it came out and they said, oh yeah, it's $30, but we'll give you a $5 discount. That one really surprised me. In the past, they've been pretty good about, like I said, in the P3D world, they had 3 SOP packs all at once, released with the whole thing. I guess the fact that they released just SOP Pack 1 should have been kind of the hint that this was coming. Maybe they need to get their revenue streams more up there, but I don't know. I feel like it's probably not. I feel like it's definitely not worth it for me. I'm not going to be spending that money. And if they were to go and say 50% discount for those who own SOP Pack 1, I'd think about it. But at a $5 discount, even at that, what is that, a 15% discount? No. I just said no. You're overestimating the additional value I think provided, perhaps. That was one that just bugged me a little bit. It felt like, nickel and diming. They probably looked at it in the P3D era and said, why do we offer these as one combined pack? But in the P3D era, they did charge more, I believe. I believe that the 737 pack for all 3 packs was a higher price than any of the other packs before it. I think it was closer to $40 instead of like $25 or $30 like most of the other packs. But again, you got 3 different SOP packs for it. You were getting better value for your money. I don't know, just the fact they came out and they said we're charging basically you almost full price again. That's the part that really kind of bugged me. It got under my skin and I said, no, that's a bit much, I think. Anywho, what else? It's summer, so not much is going on, but I did get a chance to go to the cottage last week, and it was very pleasant. Ended up taking almost 4 full days at the cottage, and it's so pleasant to get away. And I am not normally a good vacationer. You can probably ask my wife; she'll tell you I'm not a good vacationer. I'm a good vacationer, but I'm the let's do it vacationer. I'm let's go on a trip. Let's go somewhere. Let's have a list of things to do every day. I'm a busy vacationer. I enjoy doing lots of stuff, seeing lots of things, getting stuff done. But for some reason, the cottage, I am just the complete and polar opposite. I am just the complete and polar opposite when I go to the cottage. I just completely don't do anything. I don't want to do anything, and there's not much to do there other than swim in the lake, which is great. That's all I really want to do. So you go, you swim in the lake, you come up on the beach, you relax in the sun for half an hour, you get hot again, you go back in the water again, and that's all I did for like pretty much almost the full 4 days. It wasn't really full 4 days because by the time I got there, it was dinner time on day 1. But it was like 3 days, so like 2 days of just like nothing but just get up in the morning whenever, not even set an alarm clock, and that for me is just completely anathema. At home, I never not set an alarm. There's always something you got to do at home. There's always something you got to get up at a reasonable hour, feed the kids, feed the kids, feed the animals, do some kind of errands or chores around the house, something. There's always something you got to do. So I always set an alarm. I may give myself a kind of a leisurely wake up, but I always set an alarm. But when I go to the cottage, I don't even set an alarm. I get woken up by the sun, whatever time it wakes me up, get up. The only things I have to do during the day are make meals. This is basically it. Got to make breakfast, got to make lunch, got to make dinner. That's it. That's all you got to do. So like I can, whatever time I get up at, okay, that's the time we'll grab some breakfast. We'll make some lunch plans. That'll be it. I mean, we might go for ice cream. Might be the biggest thing we do. It's such a nice thing. So, and the other nice thing I do is I completely disconnect from the world pretty much for the time I'm at the cottage. I put my phone on the charger, and it charges all night long. And then I plug it from the charger in the morning, and I just leave it. I don't even, I'm usually have my bathing suit on, so I don't want to put it in my pocket and forget it's there and go in the lake with it. So it sits in the cottage all day long, and for like 3 to 4 days, I will be completely disengaged from the digital world, off the grid, no connection to the digital world. The network coverage is not great there, for cell phones anyways. You just often have to just walk around the property holding your phone up if you're trying to get a signal because you're trying to figure out what the weather's going to be the next day. But it's just so nice to completely disconnect from the digital world, from the stresses of work and all that. I usually bring a couple of books. I bring a couple of like word puzzle books, and I'll just sit there on the beach with a pencil, just doing word puzzles. I'll read. I read an entire book in the 3 and something days I was there. It's just so nice to do that. I'm not usually a good vacationer like that. Most of the time I go on vacation, like I said, I have a list of stuff to do. You go to a city you've never been to before, it's like, wow, we better make the most of the time. It costs us X number of dollars to get here. We better make the most of it, visit as many things as we can. And I'm not very good at that relaxing aspect of it. But that's one thing I can definitely do when I head up to the cottage. There's just so little to do. It's nice. And there is maintenance stuff to be done in the cottage, but I just can't be bothered with it half the time. I just want to go there, and I want it to be a place to relax and just do nothing and just sit on the beach, go swim, and then sit on the beach again, and that's all. And it's so hard for me to do it. It's funny because like the one thing I notice is that I have almost zero pictures of my children at the cottage, or any of my family at the cottage. And the whole reason is because I never have my phone in my hand, so I don't go out and take pictures. You take pictures often. It's a spontaneous action you take, but your phone's in your pocket. You just reach for it, you pull it out. I never have my phone near me at the cottage. It sits in the cottage when I'm down on the beach. So I never end up taking any pictures for that reason as well. It's a bit of a weird conundrum, but for me, I just need that break too. We live in such a constantly digital world, he said as he streamed to his many fans. Oh, you know what I never did actually, now that I think about it. It's just nice to have that one place that I can go where I just don't do anything. It's complete relaxation. Because even at home, you're always doing something. There's always some chore that needs to be done, some stress that needs to be taken care of. So PMGFS aircraft failures. All systems. Random base system failures are on. And random failures, we're going to put this on here. Five events per 10 hours. I'm not even going to put the limit on there today. That's me living dangerously. There's our top of descent already scrolling into view at about 250 miles there, almost 300 miles. So we're getting there pretty quickly here. It's not a long flight to Jackson Hole, so it's probably actually in our best interest to start prepping now, and then we'll we can chat about more stuff too. Jackson Hole. Wind 020 at 6, 10 miles, scattered 9,000, 12 degrees. It's not very warm up there, 3027. So yeah, light winds out of the north. I think 01 is a very reasonable option. And we'll pull up the charts and we'll start looking at it. So I'm just going to preset 3027 on here. There we go, that's preset. And yeah, let's have a look at those charts and let's start thinking about an arrival. So, charts. All right. So we don't have any stars available. We just have to set up an approach. Let's see what kind of approaches we have here. So this is an LNAV, VNAV with LPV. This is an RNP 0.3, and this is an RNP 0.3 or 0.11. So these are the really high intensity approaches here. What's the difference here on this one? LNAV, VNAV goes down to 7327. Yeah, they do have a few transitions that we could probably take. I guess we'll go with the RNAV X-ray. It's the your airline would know. I don't even necessarily know what level the Alaska Airlines would be certified to, but it's really not going to make a big difference. The big difference it makes is in the missed approach performance, the climb performance, the missed approach performance, and therefore the minimums that are available. But in terms of certainly transitioning, there's no smarter transitions really. All new SILEG, all new. Vicky, which is at 33 miles final. RNAV X-ray. No procedure turn, 11,700 turn inbound. That's fine. Yeah, we could do the RNAV X-ray. What I do notice though is that it's a very long final here. Full temperature connection required, authorization required, front composite BNAV, below -27. It's not that cold today, so it's not so bad. Yeah, we'll just do the RNAV X-ray. It actually cuts us in close here. We'll still have to hustle to get down on this 23-mile final because we got to lose about 5,000 feet on this 23-mile final. But that's pretty reasonable. So yeah, let's plan that. Let's plan the RNAV X-ray, and it's the SILEG transition. So let's get that in the box here. RNAV X-ray 01 SILEG transition. All right, and that should still leave us with a discon. So DNW, so Tokad, DNW, and then Jackson Hole. I don't even see where Tokad is. Tokad's 293 miles. Yeah, it should be just scrolling in there any second now. I think it's just not quite visible. All right. Yeah, so we've got a disc on there, and we've got SILEG Hamva. All right, so that's all in there. Let's just check it. SILEG to Hamva's 11.7, then inbound to Falcu 11, 10.4 for DSEV, 9,500 for Zugen. Then from Zugen, we can do the approach down. Kavgi. Zugen is the final approach fix anyways. Kavgi's got an 8180 minimum. There it is, runway 01, 6500, and the next approach is flying to 14,000 direct court and track 088 to the DNW VOR. So the DNW VOR is actually past the field, so we actually would circle back to get to it. So yeah, that's why I'm seeing the approach before I even see the VOR that we're heading to here. Oh, I see the fixes that are here. It's got me going DNW to VOC. That's why it's got me going all the way around here. DNW to VOC. And this is the transition it wants me to do. I don't want to do that transition. No, we're gonna do the left base. It's gonna be a little faster and easier. Not gonna waste time going around all the way around for a right downwind. All right. So let's see here. The descent is a normal 3 degrees. And what's the field length in Jackson? Jackson Hole here. 6,300. That's a pretty reasonable field length. So I think we'll do a flaps 30 approach with medium, with auto brake 3. All right, so let's do that. So let's do a flaps 30 approach. Is the plan. 130 knot VREF. And then we'll do level 3 auto brake. Just because the air is thinner, we're actually going to be going a lot faster than 130 knots. We're going to be doing probably about 170 knots at touchdown, ground speed. So, yeah, let's do that. And I think that's everything. So the gates, we've got a bunch of gates here now. A bunch of these, I got the Axonos scenery. A bunch of them are already occupied by their aircraft. So I think we had to go to gate 6. I think was the gate we had to go to. We'll see. We'll ask GSX when we're on approach what gate we can go to. Okay, so I think we got everything more or less set up here. We don't need the ILS tuned in. We're doing an RNAV approach. Yeah. One thing I don't know offhand, but I'm going to see if I can find it here. Is how do you do a rain check, a GPS check? Nav status? Nope. GPS. think there's got to be a way to do it, but I don't know how to do it. No. I know how to do it in the Airbus. But I don't know offhand how to do it in the 737. Before you get there, you should check the GPS to make sure that the calculations suggest that it is going to be functional by the time you get there. There's going to be enough GPS coverage and everything. Progress. RP approach 0.3. Don't do anything. I don't know how to find it out. I don't. You ever sent a wind request? We never did. It's not a wind request. Not sure if it'll come back with winds or not. Alright, anywho. Well, we tried. You have control.
I have control.
Are you ready for the approach briefing? Are you ready for the approach briefing?
Go ahead.
Alright, because the other thing that never happened was I have now had my all of my training of the voice recognition is all gone as well. Cruise wind, uplink ready. Ah, perfect. Data link invalid. It did not successfully bring it back anyways, that's fine. I don't care too much. The average wind is good enough for me. And anyways, so today we are heading into Jackson Hole in Wyoming. We're planning an RNAV X-ray to runway 01. There is no arrival today, so we're just going to transition. At some point, we're going to clear ourselves direct SILEG and just do that transition directly. So it's the RNAV X-ray runway 1, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It's a WASP frequency, no tuning required. Final approach course 006. Let's actually just check that. 008's within reason. Zugan at 9500, and the we're going to use the LNAV VNAV DA today of 7327. This might actually, I shouldn't have started this briefing without having done this, because it's going to take me 5 minutes just to set this. I do like Airbus. You just type in 7327 and you're done. La la la. It's going to take a little while here. Get those, widen those minimums all the way up. Yeah, man. You can do it. Well, we're at 2100. We're getting there. This is the least exciting part of the stream. Watching the numbers just turn slowly upwards. 4 miles visibility. It's a good thing it's a nice day down there. Because, yeah, it is pretty much your 3.4 miles final when you hit 7327 at 896 feet. Yeah, that's very reasonable. If you do the LPV and you go down to 6651, then you're good down to RVR 4000. That's a lot closer, but wow. Still going. 4,000 feet. Still 3,000 to go. Come on. Oh my gosh. 6,000 feet. Should have done this before I started the briefing, huh? 7540 is what we're looking for. Sorry, 7327. My bad, I'm looking at the wrong column there. 7327. $73.27. There it is. All right, 4 miles visibility is required. It's just a beautiful VFR day there, so it shouldn't be an issue. We'll step ourselves down through Hama, Valku, D7, and Zugan. It's all in the box, so we can do it in VNAV mode. It should protect us for all those. And approaching Zugan, we can arm the approach and follow the virtual glide path down. We'll have Pappies on the left MALS lighting system. Landing in Jackson Hole. It's convenient right turn off the runway. I expect we're going to probably roll all the way to the end. I doubt we're going to make Alpha 3. So we'll be all the way to the end at Alpha 4 and then taxi back to the terminal. We're going to park at, I think, Gate 6, I think is where we're parking today. And yeah, no jet bridges here, so it is going to be air stair parking. Yeah, I think that's about all I've got for that. So as far as risks and hazards, terrain is obviously one of the biggest hazards around Jackson Hole. We have very high terrain underneath the approach to the east and west of the airport as well. If we lose GPS for any reason, we just start an immediate climb and just maintain the present heading, continue on the climb. And that'll take us hopefully up the rest of the valley. It is kind of a north-south valley that we're descending into. But we will make sure we respect all of these step downs as we're going here. The highest terrain, the MSA is 14,900. 14,900. And the highest terrain point on the chart here is off to the east, but there's equally high 11,000 foot terrain to the west. So terrain's the biggest issue, really. We'll also have the GPWS terrain indications on here as well, so we can see them as we're going down, make sure we know where we are. And we'll also be able to look out the window, at least it's VFR today. Weather is, again, VFR, not much of an issue today. Operational, everything's still functional at this time. And just a quick NOTAM check. Alright, destination. So let's see here. Weather report unavailable. Apron GA ramp closed. To GA remaining overnight. VOR DME is not monitored. Taxiway Alpha East 105 feet work in progress. VOR DME not monitored. Northeast ramp work in progress. Approach lighting system 19 unserviceable. Approach lighting system 1 unserviceable except medium intensity on constant. On continuous, I guess, daily. Departures, no. Approach procedures, VOR runway 1, RNAV, Zulu runway 19. No, nothing impacts us, so no NOTAMs to impact us. In terms of fuel, we needed, I believe we needed 5.5. Was that what I put in there? 5.4 to go to Salt Lake City is the alternate. It's also supposed to be a really nice day there, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. We'll check it again here momentarily. We're showing 9.3 overhead. We're actually going to have more than that because we are going to cut in and cut out a whole big part of this triangle here. So instead of going over here, going back up and back, we're just going to go direct shortly here. So yeah, 7.2, or sorry, 9.3. So we have about 4,000 pounds extra. So we could probably hold for a good 30 to 45 minutes. Definitely do a second approach if we have to go around for any reason. So if we do go around, we will discuss the reason why we went around and consider coming back for another approach before we break off towards Salt Lake City to the south. And that's all I got. Any questions? Any questions?
No questions.
I'm just pulling it up really quickly here on my V-Pilot Salt Lake City. 10 miles clear, 26 degrees. Winds are very light out of the south, so not much of an issue there.
No questions.
I have control.
You have control.
Alright, so at this point, being about 150 miles away, we would request it from ATC. There's still no ATC online. I just looked, so let's just go ahead and do it ourselves. Let's just go direct to Still Egg. because this is also going to massively change our top of descent point. Our top of descent point is currently 160 miles away. If I go direct to Sillig, it's going to have to recalculate, and now the top of descent point is now only about 100 miles away. So yeah, let's at least we're ready for that now. Got a very realistic top of descent point. There was other strategies for handling that as well, and you'll often have this at a lot of smaller uncontrolled airports where you don't necessarily have, or where you don't necessarily have a good any good transitions or stars available, where your flight plan will just be overhead the field, and then you maybe go past it for another approach, or you'll go to the field and you'll come back to do the approach. There's different ways you can handle it, so I took the easiest way, which was to ask for an early direct and let the airplane do the planning. But you can also create pseudo waypoints, so you can create a waypoint along your route, or you can use the existing waypoint along your route. So we had D and W there, so actually if I do it this way I can show you guys. Yeah, so we had Tokad and D and W, and then yeah, so that was our route, was Tokad, D and W, and then we come down here and do this. What you can do is you can use this waypoint here. So I think I got those in the wrong order there, but you can use this waypoint here and say, like, you know, be like 5,000 feet over this waypoint instead of letting it automatically calculate because it thinks you're going 30 miles down this way and 30 miles back. It's going to say, oh, cross it at 20,000. You can change it and say cross it at 5,000 or 3,000 even. Probably would be a little bit low because you got a long final on this one, but that's what we often did. There's a couple of East Coast airports I used to go to that uncontrolled airports. Your flight plan would usually be direct to the VOR, direct to field, and no kind of allowance for an approach in there. And you'd have the same exact sort of situation where, you know, if you're going over here and going past the field and coming back and landing this way, that's fine. But if you're going this way, but then you're coming back and you're doing this approach over here, in reality, you're going to do this. In that case, you know, the VNAV planning is going to be totally off until you get the approach in there and get direct to that waypoint. So create a pseudo waypoint next to the airport, or whatever point is near the airport. Create a realistic crossing height that starts the descent down sooner. And then when you get direct, you'll recalculate. Maybe it'll be a little bit high, a little bit low, but you won't be 20,000 feet high, as was going to probably be the case with us when we suddenly have to start down 80 miles sooner than we had originally planned to start down. All right, anywho, we are getting there. It's almost feeling like back in the CRJ days here with this short flight after these epically long Chicago flights we were doing there. Man, this feels so short. What else? What else? It was an interesting day this week in Chicago because not yesterday, but the day before, I guess it would have been Wednesday, I believe it was. They had a tornado touchdown right near the airport. It wasn't actually at the airport, but it was close enough to the airport that they were actually issuing tornado warnings in the airport, and people were hunkering down in the terminal. It avoided the whole airport altogether, but boy, did that throw a whole wrench in Chicago's plans. I mean, and they're ready for some bad weather from time to time, but not the kind of bad weather that they get. Not tornado warnings that put all the aircraft in the area to a stop for, I think it was about 3 or 4 hours. 3 or 4 hours, the airport just came to a complete halt. That's a long time for Chicago to be not running. I see LAX Center is online. Not a whole lot of other ATC online, but it's a Friday, but it is a summer Friday, so chances are if you're not working today, you're going and doing something more fun than controlling airplanes. Even I have not been controlling VATSIM as much as I would like. I did control a little bit this week. One of the evenings this week I finally got a chance in there to control, and I was happy about that, but it's been less than I would like. Intermittent to say the least. I have definitely not been online as much as I would normally like to be, but that's just the nature of the beast sometimes. It's been summer. It's also been a little bit hectic. So you guys probably know, most of you guys probably know that I tend to try and target, you know, when I'm off as killing time in a hotel, that's a great time to spend some time doing VATSIM ATC because I'm, not doing much else. But the way the summer has worked out has not been great for that for a couple of reasons. The first is that we've been tuning the system. And by we I mean the airline, has been tuning the system to the point where there are constantly changes to the schedule, and they're constantly swapping aircraft to, like, you know, just perfectly manage the demand. Because the crazy thing is, like, the load factors these days on Airline, and I think this is true of most of the airlines, the load factors are absolutely crazy. And anybody who's traveled this summer will probably be able to attest to this. I'm just going to set this up here. How completely yeah, terrain's a big one. Alright, so minimum altitude 7327, and I forget what the other altitudes were on here. 14,000 feet for the missed approach, and 9,500 at Sugan. There, now that's all set. Yeah, anybody who's traveled this summer will probably test this, that the planes are pretty much almost full. Like, constantly, like, every plane, every airline is almost full. And our airline's no exception, so there's been a lot of up-gauging, down-gauging, right-gauging of the different routes. So if a flight sells out completely, they might switch it up to a larger aircraft, try to swap it with a smaller aircraft somewhere else. So I've had a lot of my trips have kind of fallen apart because they've up-gauged the flights that we've been on because they're fully sold out. So they're like, well, if we can sell this many seats, maybe if we have a bigger airplane available and we can put it on there, maybe we can make some more money. Or even the reverse of it, down-gauging sometimes, not selling enough seats, and we can use this bigger airplane somewhere else. So I've had a lot of my flights and trips kind of torn apart. So I've lost a number of layovers. So far this month, I've lost 3 layovers. Which is not a terrible thing, because it's nice to go home as well, but you're planning on these things, and I'm using them usually, like I said, for ATC, for streaming, and just for general VATSIM controlling, and even just nice to get out and do things. And I've been losing a number of these layovers, so it's hasn't been going quite according to plan. But speaking of that, like, the numbers are insane in terms of the number of people traveling and the airline, the levels that the airlines are reaching. So I don't know necessarily the numbers for all the other airlines, but our airline told us that there have been days this summer where we had load factors that reached 92%. So 92% of the seats sold by the airline that day were filled, which is, it sounds like, oh, there's a whole bunch of seats available, but that is an insane number to reach on a regular basis. We, in the airline industry, pre-COVID, your typical load factors were on the order of 80%. So generally, about 4 out of 5 seats on the 4 out of every 5 seats on the airplane were filled. Some routes were always full all the time, and other routes were a little emptier. But average across most airlines was generally in the 80% range. Was considered a good airline pre-COVID. If you could get to 80%, you were generally considered to be doing a very good job as an airline. Most airlines were somewhere in the 70s, and generally the break-even range on a flight is somewhere in the 60 to 70%. So if you can sell about 60 to 70% of the seats on an airplane, you're going to break even. Now, of course, most of the expenses are averaged across the whole airline. So some flights will be more popular than others. Some seats will be full. Some flights will be full. Some flights won't. But across the whole airline, if you can generally manage to get into pre-COVID, if you could generally manage to get into the 70s, you were doing well as an airline. That was generally considered acceptable and successful as an airline, as if you could get in the 70s. So now our low days are 80s. We're generally filling 80% of the seats on our airplanes on the low days. On the high days, we're over the 90% mark, which is crazy. And it's the seats, and from what I've seen, it's definitely borne out. The seats are sold out. The flights are sold out. Most of the flights that I do, if there's an empty seat, it's not even 5% of the airplane. It's like 2 to 3% of the airplane might be empty. 2 to 3% of the seats might be unsold, but in general, the flights are a lot fuller than they used to be, which I think is then a testament if the airlines are doing pretty well, considering the fact that they are transporting more people on the same number of airplanes that they were pre-COVID. So the numbers are generally up to pre-COVID numbers, and we're doing a few less flights because we just don't have enough airplanes and staff to get these flights out there. But the flights are fuller. We're being more efficient with the operations we do have. That number, when I read that blew my mind, that we are regularly exceeding 92%. Okay, let me just put it in a lower altitude here. And actually, let me just do this because we don't have 100-mile safes in this country. So let's just see what the highest MSA I've got on this route. 14,000 from where we are will cover all of these. So okay, we'll do 14,000 as our initial set altitude. But yeah, 90+% load factor some days, and regularly hitting, pretty much almost consistently this summer, hitting above 80%. That is a lot of people. And you know, that's just there's very little slack in the system is the flip side of this equation as well. There's extremely little slack in the system, which is problematic in a couple ways. First of all, it's problematic when things don't go according to plan, and they will not go according to plan on a regular basis. When bad weather hits, there's so little slack in the system that people are being rebooked days later because there's just not enough empty seats left to keep it. You know, we have to generally, if we cancel a flight, we've got to find another airplane and sub in another flight. We do not have enough seats scattered on most routes across that day to make up for a canceled flight without displacing people 2 to 3 days out. There is retard and VNAV path. There's the descent 390 down to 14,000. So that's the first problem, is that there's no there's very little slack in the system. And the second problem then comes in with staff travel, because as most people are probably aware, staff generally travel on their airlines on standby. So they are sitting at the gate waiting for empty seats. They'll book a ticket as a standby ticket. It costs very little, but they're waiting to make sure that there's an empty seat in the airplane. If there's no empty seats in the airplane, they don't go. That's becoming a real problem for both holiday and commuting staff. So for holiday staff, you know, obviously you're trying to travel during the peak summer period. It used to be like, okay, you know, you're taking a little bit of a risk, but you'll probably get there sometime today. But now, like, you'll go to the airport and it'll be like, hey, you're not going to make it today or tomorrow. You might have to wait 3 days on standby before you might actually get to where you want to go on vacation. So if you want to travel as a staff member, you got to pretty much book a ticket, which is, it's a bit disappointing, because this was one of the perks of the job for a long time was okay, yeah, you know, it's a job that sometimes doesn't pay well, and you have to put up with a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of crazy hours, and work long periods of time away from home. But the fringe benefit was you got to travel pretty inexpensively. But that benefit is starting to go away now because of the fact that it's just that things are so oversold. You can't use it. There was an airline I used to work for that their East Coast stations, they used to give people passes as like a reward for good service, and everyone's like, this is worthless. This pass is worthless because every flight out of these East Coast stations is full all the time. The market is so busy. We can never get out of here. So these free flight passes you keep giving us are just worthless because they're still standby passes. There's never an empty seat, and that's the way it's becoming. But it's also becoming a problem for commuters now. There's a lot of people in the airline business, not so much in Canada, especially in the U.S., but even in Canada, where they don't live at their home base. There's only, you know, an airline will only have a couple of major airports where they will have crews based, where they start and end their trips. But people will choose to live in other cities in the country and fly standby to get to do their flights. You know, it's a question of lifestyle, and also, like, where do you want to live? Do you want to live in one of these major cities? Because the hubs are only in the major cities, where most people can't even afford to live anymore anyways. You can't even afford to buy a house. You know, some people like that quieter lifestyle. They have family in certain places. They want to live in certain places, so that's fine. But it used to be I was okay. You could usually manage to squeeze a seat. Now we're getting people are riding the jump seat so often because it's the only way to commute. So I've had it happen quite a few times this month where we've had to take someone in the jump seat because it's the last seat left in the airplane. So if they're an off-duty flight crew member, they can still sit in the flight deck, especially on domestic flights, and travel that way. It's the last seat left in the airplane. It's not a particularly comfortable seat. You won't get a meal. You know, you won't get to use the in-flight entertainment system. Your in-flight entertainment system will be the pilots. They're talking to you. It's not the most comfortable seat. It's okay if it's a shorter flight, but sometimes you're doing like a 3.5 hour flight. That's an uncomfortable seat for a 3.5 hour flight, and you got nowhere else to go because there's no other empty seats in the airplane. It's not something. It's a last resort, but the last resort is getting used more and more often now. It's not a terrible thing. You know, I enjoy having an extra company in the jump seat. The couple times it's happened, been some fun people. We've chatted, we've talked about stuff. It changes the dynamic just having a third person in the flight deck, but these are people, you know, they're depending on being able to get from point A to point B for their job, and like they're flying out earlier and earlier. You know, sometimes they'll leave their family 24 hours before they actually have to be at work, because they want to make sure they get to the airport, that if they can't get on the first flight, they've got 2 or 3 other possibilities that they can get there. And usually, oftentimes, they'll try to get there the night before and go to a crash pad where, you know, crash pad somewhere not too far from the airport where they can get a night's sleep relatively cheap. You know, hotels can be expensive, so the crash pads are usually, you pay it on a monthly basis, but it's the equivalent of 2 or 3 nights of hotel rooms for just like a bunk bed in an overcrowded house. But it you know, for the guys that do that, it's sort of a hit or miss proposition, because again, you're taking a chance. Chances are most people, you know, the way these crash pads are set up, most people are not using them every single day. They're usually planned to be in there 3 or 4 nights in a month. They're planning, they pay for it to sort of have a guaranteed place to stay that's not too expensive, because it's a fraction of the price of a hotel. But you know, they're kind of betting on the fact that usually most of the time they're empty, and that is the case most of the time. Each person that you know, these crash pads will be rented out to like 10 or 12 different people, but each person's only in there 3 or 4 nights a month. Chances are there'll only be 1 or 2 other people in there on the nights you're there, so it won't be noisy. You don't have to worry about people keeping you up when you're trying to sleep. But that's the reality. Is more and more people are making use of them and coming in a day early just to make sure they can get a seat on their flight, get a flight out and get to their destination on time. A lot of the U.S. carriers have big policies with commuting, because commuting is huge in the U.S. Probably like 2/3 of the pilots do not live at the airports they're based at. In Canada, it's probably more like maybe about 10 to 20%. Probably about 20%, I would think, of pilots commute, something along those lines. But in the U.S., it's the majority of pilots commute to some degree. And most airlines support that. They're like, yeah, we know you can't afford to live in the major urban areas. You can't afford to live in New York if you're based in Newark. You can't afford to live within like 2 hours of the airport anyway, so you might as well commute from somewhere more pleasant, you know, so you can commute from, you know, somewhere in upstate New York, or maybe you live in Indiana or Kentucky or something, and you can commute from there. So a lot of the airlines have support for this. They have commuting policies, and basically what they say, most commuting policies say something to the effect of, as long as you have tried for at least 2 flights, or maybe it might even be 3, if you took the first of 3 possible flights, and you were at the airport for the first of 3 possible flights, and you did not make it on all of those 2 or 3, most of them I think it's 2. You know, if you had 2 reasonable chances of getting to your home base, and you know, because of circumstances beyond your control. So and again, the airlines took it upon themselves, like if we screw up, if we have to cancel a flight, or we have a broken airplane, we have bad weather that delays stuff, you know, there would be no penalty as long as you tried to get to your flight. Canadian Airlines, most of them don't have that policy. Most of them are like, you be here. If you're not here, it's your responsibility. You're going to lose pay. You're going to get called into the office to talk about your attendance issues. In the U.S., as long as you can show proof that you had two possibilities to get to work and you didn't make it, you know, the flight you'll be replaced on the flight with no penalty. You know, some of them you might lose the pay from that flight, but you won't be penalized. You won't be looked upon as having poor attendance if you couldn't make it because of commuting issues. So commuting policies are a very useful tool, and it's something that I think needs to come again. Like the cost of living in the major urban areas where the major airlines are based is just phenomenal now. If you haven't already found a place to live, if you're not already paying for a place to live, by now, getting into it is just almost impossible. You know what we never did? We never did a descent checklist, so let's do it now. Descent checklist.
Descent checklist. Pressurization. Landing altitude is 6,450 feet. Recall checked. Water brake. Level 2. The landing data.
I swear it's level 3. VREF 130. Minimums 7327 feet set.
VREF 130. Minimums 7327 feet. Approach briefing.
Completed.
Descent checklist complete.
Cool, the descent checklist is complete. Haha, funny. Alright, look at that. See, we're almost there. Getting there pretty quickly. We only got another, let's look at the top of the screen there. 5 minutes as the crow flies. It's going to take us a little longer because we're still at 20,000 feet. We're flying a long approach, but we're only, what, 30-something miles away from Jackson Hole right now? We still have about 55 miles to fly. Getting up a little bit faster than we should be here. So there's that lake. So basically, Jackson Hole is just on the other side. There's a nice big wide valley right here. Jackson Hole is right over there. Maybe some external shots before we land. Something for my title card, as always. All right. Focus, because we're actually getting in there pretty quickly. There's transition. Transition 3027 inches. Transition set altimeter 3027.
Three 027 set. Passing 17,600. Now.
Roger. So we're getting ended up a little bit high on the path here. We have more of a tailwind than we kind of planned upon here, so let's start helping her out here a little bit. Speed brake just to help her down. This is planned as pretty much a continuous descent all the way around to the airport over there, so we need to make sure we're kind of on target here, or we'll end up unable to decelerate. This airplane's a little bit slippery. She has a hard time decelerating, especially at first, until you start to get the first couple notches of flaps deployed. She does not like to decelerate. Drag required. Thanks, plane. You're the best. How do you know? Maybe 210 knots at Silleg as well. That's also slowing down here. It is some gorgeous terrain up here. I understand why people like to visit up here.
Cabin crew, prepare for landing.
And I am kind of glad that it is VFR today, so you guys can see this terrain too. It'd be a little bit unnerving descending through the mountains like this if it was IMC. All right, we're slowly getting down there. Trying to be disciplined. I keep my hand on the speed brake lever anytime it's deployed, so I don't forget it's deployed, because I think 1 or 2 flights ago I did deploy it and forgot it was deployed. You can take your hand off for a second to do other stuff, but for crying out loud, if your speed brakes are deployed, put them back on your hand as soon as you can. Alright, we're almost back on target again here, so we're going to close that now. Winds keep shifting underneath us here. Pretty much back on target. We're a tiny bit fast, but we're doing pretty good here. Oh, what a beautiful day up here too. Alright, so the airport's going to become more obvious once we turn final here. Alright, so we're now good down to 11,700, so let's get that. Keep protecting ourselves here, although we are in VNAV mode, so it should, the VNAV path, because all the constraints are in here, it should protect us from all of these constraints here. The active word is should. Alright, since we're about to turn final, let's do this. Approach checklist.
Approach checklist. Altimeters.
3027 inches.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we start our descent,
3027 set.
3027 set. Approach checklist completed.
The other thing is that we are only about 7,000 feet above the ground, not above this mountain, but above the airport elevation, so we are only about 20-something miles to touchdown. Let's go ahead and get the landing lights back on there. Flaps 1.
Speed check.
Flaps 2.
Speed check. Flaps 1 set. Flaps up.
Flaps 2. Flaps
Speed
5.
check. Flaps up. Speed check.
There's no flaps 2 for some reason.
Flaps 5 set.
Airport's here somewhere. I just don't even see where it is yet. We'll see it as we come around. I still don't even see. Should be right in front of us, but I don't even see it yet. Or is it there? Oh, I think I see it there. But high terrain on either side. You would not want to get lost IMC here, that's for sure. Gear down.
Gear down.
Yeah, I have to do that myself. Oh, I forget that. Alright, let's get the speed back to 180 here. We're still settling down nicely here. It's 11,400. It's heading 10,400.
Flight deck. Okay, thanks. Captain, the
Basically
cabin
been
is
an
secure.
idle descent this whole time, just trying to get down. Alright, that's close enough. We'll set the 9,500, and then we'll arm the approach here shortly. Flaps 15.
Speed check. Flaps 15 set.
VAC, glide path armed.
Checked.
Alright, we're still about 12 miles final here, so I'm just going to delay this final flap deployment here slightly, but let's do this actually. Jackson Hole traffic, Alaska 766 is established on a 12-mile final runway
10,000.
01. It's also very weird when you go to airports that are very high elevation because it screws up, you know, 10,000 is usually like a 30 miles, 10 minutes to landing kind of marker, but it doesn't work when your airport elevation is at 7,000 feet. You gotta kind of make a plan for it. There's glide path. Glide path.
Checked.
Set missed approach altitude 14,000.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be arriving at our destination shortly. If you are making a connection to
The final approach fixed. Height checked, but the missed approach altitude is not set.
Well, I asked you to set it, you jackass. Alright. Flaps 25.
Speed check. Flaps 25.
Flaps 30.
Speed check. Flaps 30 set.
My phone's gonna file a report with HR. So be it. Wouldn't be the first time I've been called out for calling him an idiot.
Cabin crew, take your seats.
Landing checklist.
Landing checklist. Engine star switches.
Continuous.
Speed brake.
Armed.
Landing gear.
Down.
Flaps.
Flaps 30, green light.
Landing checklist complete.
I love how you're always here to defend the FO. Nobody else, just the FO. Alright. She's a little bit gusty here, so I was about to reduce the speed slightly, but the wind's a little bit all over the place here. It's a light and variable wind. Yeah, like look at it right now. It's just kind of all over the place. It's kind of gusty, 5-10 knots. I might leave the 10 knots on the ref speed there. I was going to cut it down to 145, but I might leave it at 150. Gotta defend the little guy. Well, I'm glad somebody's thinking about him. Alright, she's looking pretty good here. Just trying to decide if it's worth taking that last little bit of power off or not. Okay, we'll take it to 138. As of ref today, we'll add 8 knots. It's a little bit gusty. It's not terrible, but it's a little bit gusty here. Alright. Make sure I'm happy with my seat position here. Alright, autopilot's coming off.
Autopilot off.
1,000.
1,000 feet. Stable.
Roger. I don't know if you could call it...
Approaching minimums.
Approaching minimums.
Roger.
Minimums.
Continue. Landing. Yeah, the wind seems to have calmed down a little bit here on approach now.
500.
500 feet.
Roger.
400.
Throttle's off.
300.
Tiny bit low, correcting.
200. 100. 50. 30. 20. 10.
Speed breaker. Reverse is normal.
Alright, manual
Auto
braking.
brake disarmed. $60 knots.
Checked. Again, it looks like we're getting kind of close to the end of that runway there. 5,000 feet's pretty short in a 37. I didn't actually look what the ground speed was, but if someone wants to quickly scan back and tell me what the ground speed was, a touchdown, but it certainly wasn't 130, or at certainly at the fence, it certainly wasn't 138 knot ground speed. It was probably more like about 160 or 170 knots. So stand by the decision to use auto brake 3. Don't think we popped the tires though. I think they're going to be warm. I think those brakes are going to be hot, but I don't think we actually popped the tires that time. Jackson Hole traffic, Alaska 766 is clear of runway 1, taxiing to the terminal. Alright. That was a pretty good landing. Floated just a little bit at the end there. We managed to get it down within the touchdown zone, which is fortunate. And we really did have to nail the reverse and the brakes to get that thing kind of decelerated there. She definitely needed a lot of effort. Kind of wish we had brake fans on this aircraft now. But welcome to beautiful Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Absolutely beautiful. The scenery here is fantastic. On the center line there, but maybe these will be my external shots because I just love this scenery here. Absolutely beautiful. Beautiful part of the country. There, trying to find some nice title card shots there, but there you go. It actually wasn't too bad of a landing. The approach was a little bit, the approach was pretty good. It was a little bit bumpy there just before we got to 1,000 feet, but it kind of smoothed out below that. We kind of drifted a little bit below, then above the glide path. but we definitely did. Wasn't too bad. I've done worse. I've definitely done worse. Definitely needed to add some manual braking. I find that the braking in this is not great. I find the auto brake, even at level 3, does not really provide all that much deceleration. I find you really need, in this aircraft, and I don't know if it's a 737 thing, I don't know if it's perhaps a sim thing, and the friction in the sim is not quite the way it should be, but I find that I'm often having to pound the manual brakes to try and decelerate the aircraft. Alright, that's just the auto throttle message. That doesn't need to be blinking at me. But welcome to the Axonos version of Jackson Hole. There's some serious winter equipment over there. There's a couple of helicopters over there as well. And then there's a bunch of static aircraft here as well, which is kind of fun. I like static aircraft, but I like them best when they can be optional. You're not forced to use them every single time. Alright, so we're supposed to go to gate 6. So this is gate 2. I'm going to guess the next one's gate 3. And you're picking up on a theme here. I think it's just before the American there. I think that's our air stairs they're waiting.
3 minutes.
Perfect. 3 minutes. Love it. This is gate 5, so this must be gate 6 over here. Air stairs must be for us. Lights and doors.
Check. Cabin crew, disarm doors and cross-check.
I do find these airplanes, they tend to decelerate too much on the curve. Oh, I thought they turned that option off. I swear I turned that option off. Let's just check it here, because I swear yesterday, not yesterday, the day before. There.
Checked.
I just want to see the marsh star. Because that is also a phenomenon. When you're going into a curve, especially a tight curve, you do need to carry a bit of speed around and maybe a bit of power, because if you stop an airplane halfway around a curve, it's just about the worst thing you can do. Trying to get an airplane that's on a turn going again is crazy hard. You'll need usually ridiculous amounts of power because the nose wheel is cranked, so you're kind of pushing against the nose wheel and trying to get the airplane moving. You need momentum in a turn. If you end up stopping, usually you have to straighten the wheel for a period of time and just you have to straighten the wheel for a period of time, let the airplane accelerate, build up some momentum, and then you can start the turn again. So whenever you're taxiing an airplane, you try to never stop on the turn. Try to only stop on the straightaways. All right, there we go. And generators. Did this guy not start the APU? Yeah, no, the generators are on. Yeah, APU's on. Generators are on. Please remember to submit my flight. Sweet, that worked.
This parking is isolated. Ground services are not available. This parking is isolated. Ground services are not available.
Shutdown checklist.
Shutdown checklist. Fuel pumps off. Propane off. Hydraulic panel set. Flaps
0. Up.
parking brake.
Set.
Engine start levers.
Cut off.
Weather radar.
Off.
Off. Shutdown checklist complete.
Well, that's a little bit disappointing. Why is this an isolated? Is there no way to get Is there no way to get it for passenger bus, disable staircases, underground refueling? Is there no way to change that? What does isolated even mean for GSX? Because I've seen that once or twice before. Okay, anyway, let's do it this way, because we can do this. So let's do menu, FS actions, ground services. Chocks are on. So we can request, today we're going to do stairs. So request stair 1L. That's good enough. And then we can also request the forward loader, the aft loader, the forward carts, the aft carts. There we go. And that'll get us at least some realistic unloading going on, because I'm curious to know, and let me see if I can find an answer here really quickly. GSX isolated parking. You know, it's funny when you start searching for things and many other people. So what does it mean? So does it mean that there's no known roadways over there, so that's why it won't draw any yeah, anyways, it seems like, okay, yeah, so reported as isolated by GSX, which means GSX does not see a taxi path connected to the parking. All right, so this is the Axonos scenery, so I guess maybe there's not a proper AFCAD file that defines the taxiways in here, but that's okay, because just my PMDG ground services will just unload it then. I won't use GSX, I'll just use PMDG. Since we're not in a jetway anyways, it's fine. The marshaller still worked. The marshaller got us in there, and that's really one of the main things I want. Marshallers and pushback. Those are the two things that I find are critical that you need to have for GSX to be worthwhile, I guess, for lack of a better word. Those are the things that make GSX very worthwhile. So, but anyways, here we are, guys. Thank you so much for watching today. This is the Axonos Jackson Hole scenery. So this is on the Unusable's website. Yeah, this is Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Like, it's just an absolutely beautiful little airport. This is one of the bespoke airports in Microsoft Flight Simulator, but I decided to go a little even further upscale and go for the payware scenery. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful country. I can see why it's a popular little vacation spot. Just a beautiful place to kind of visit. You can see, like, it's a fairly decent sized airport. There's quite a number of hard stand aircraft parkings out here. We can park, about 10 or 12 airliners here. Nothing large for the most part, but you can park 10 or 12 narrow body airliners here pretty easily, regional jets. You can get a lot of service in and out of this airport. So it's a beautiful airport. It's a beautiful scenery, and I'm just happy that it all worked out, that we are here, that we have completed this leg successfully. So let us go in here and hit submit flight. Absolutely, please submit it. Let's see what happens. My flight has been submitted, and the return flight is now being loaded up here. So we're not going to do it today because it's already gotten a little bit late. I'm happy to have gotten one leg in. As I said, I was a little bit nervous when I started this stream, just with the blue screens of death and the other issues I've had lately. But I got a few of my friends here on Pilot's Life are kind of operating in and out here. But yeah, it's been that was a pretty successful stream. It's nice to do a shorter stream too. I mean, not that I don't like hanging out with you guys and chatting with you, but sometimes it's just nice to do a little bit of a shorter leg and not have to talk for 4 hours. So that was a very pleasant leg, very pleasant ending. It's a pity we didn't have any ATC. Not terribly surprising. I'm hoping maybe in about a week's time we might be able to do a Saturday stream and hopefully more likely get some ATC. In the meantime, not too much has happened on a Pilot's Life. There was a status message posted here. And again, there's some planned improvements for this month, and they posted a link to the roadmap, which I think I showed you guys last time. It's coming along slowly, but increased application security, added the random flight generator in the tool section, so the random flight generator that is separate you can actually use now within. These are actually all the stuff that they fixed before, so I guess this is the one that they're doing right now. Fix pause detection, so make sure people are not pausing their flight halfway through. Fire pilots logic, fix airlines that have aircraft fleet without flights, show progress towards achievements. That'd be nice. Aircraft license E175 under the E-Jet, that's good. Add aircraft filter to the job market page. Aircraft are being sent for generating schedule, just number of job algorithms in the market. Yeah, I think there's almost too many jobs on the market now. That was one thing that I've kind of looked at, and when I'm looking at the software, for the number of people that are playing this game, as it were, that are involved in it, there's way too many openings. You know, and I don't want to say that we should crowd everybody out, but I would say that in general, you know, most of the airlines should probably be on average about 80% staffed, and that allows for some movement here and there, but some airlines will be full. But in this case, like, there's no airlines that are pretty much full anymore. You can apply to any airline. Like, this whole idea of having a limited number. Oh, Air Malta is one that's actually full, 18 out of 18. But this whole idea of having like a limited number of jobs available that you're kind of competing with your fellow pilots for, the realism of that goes away if every airline, if every airline is full has open positions. I mean, and that may be the case in the real world, but they're limited. There shouldn't be like American Airlines could hire up to 667 pilots. There's probably not even that many active pilots on a pilot's life right now. So, you know, it's good to kind of give people options, but I think it's a little bit fun to add a little bit of a limitation in here and say, there's another full airline. You know, some of the airlines should be full. The number of jobs available should not be more than, like, you know, about 30 or 40% above the number of pilots flying in total. Not, you know, there's 100% vacancies. British Airways shuttle 24 out of 24. That's not bad. But you know what I mean? Like, there's almost no competition at all. So maybe if a few of these companies were a little bit smaller and people were competing a little bit harder, you know, then it give you even more of a reason to make sure you're putting your best foot forward. You got a good resume with good with good points, good overall rating, 94.77. It's been slipping a little bit. I've had some bad flights the last little while. That Dallas crash landing did not work out well for my rating there. But yeah, that way you're actually really competing with other people. So, anywho. And the other thing I was going to do too is I'm still debating whether or not I should spend some money here at the shop and maybe increase my experience points, situational awareness, leadership, and teamwork. Maybe it's time I actually spend some money. Since I've made $4,500 and slowly increase the amount of experience points. It's an extra quarter of an experience point, extra 0.25% of my experience points. But you know what? It'll help push me up there slowly but surely. So let's do that. Let's buy that right now. Purchase incomplete. Please check your inventory. Should have done it before we landed because then I would have gotten that. But anyways, rather than earning money, because the funny thing was Chapter 1, you earn money regularly every 30 days regardless of whether you actually flew or not. But in this one, it adds to your salary, which is a bit odd. A little bit less realistic, perhaps. I kind of see the advantage of that from a gaming perspective, but it's a little bit more unrealistic. So I like these ones that are going to increase my experience points, so hopefully I get promoted and, again, be more employable soon. So if I now go to where's my inventory? Dashboard. Inventory, there it is. You'll see that I have taken training in situational awareness and I get an extra 0.25 experience points per flight. It's not much, but hey, it'll add up. It'll fill this bar a little bit quicker, especially if I get that other one soon, which I've got $1,900, another $550, and I'll be able to afford that other training upgrade, and I'll get an extra 0.5%. So it's not much, but it'll get us up there sooner. I'm nowhere near the people at the top of this community. The people at the top of this community are dedicated, but they're also not live streaming it. That's the other thing too, is if I was to actually do a flight or 2 flights or 3 flights a week, I'd be a lot higher up in the community. But because I live stream them all, I'm generally doing 1 or less a month. I don't get that many on there, so there's a few people online here. Current flights 250, 330 connected pilots. Total number of pilots 7,133, but I mean the number of jobs vastly exceeds the number of pilots. So I think we could maybe tighten it down just to make it a little bit more gamey. Make yourself like I have to make myself appealing to have a good chance of getting the job. I'm competing with other people to get these jobs, to get a limited number of jobs. Anywho, Yeah, I think that's it for me today. I hope you guys had fun. I definitely did. I'm glad it worked out. I made it through. Don't want to jinx it, but we made it through the whole thing without the sim dying on me, which was my ultimate fear, was that it would at some point something would happen, and I would I would not make it anyway. So I'm glad that we made it, and yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope it was a little more entertaining. There wasn't as much discussion just because it was quick, but still, I think it's lots of fun, and we'll definitely come back and do it. So my thought right now, and you can pencil this in on your calendars for those of you guys that are watching, is Saturday, July... what day is it? I believe Saturday, July the 22nd, so it's just over a week from now. I believe I'm going to be free during the day that day to do a live stream. And it's a Saturday, so even squibbly, you'll be able to watch this one and participate in this one. So it's not set in stone yet. It's still kind of, things are in flux, and it may or may not happen. But that is kind of the plan right now. Is that just over a week from now, Saturday the 22nd, I'm hoping to do a live stream. And if I can do it that day, I will probably even do it as a double header. We'll do Jackson Hole back to Seattle. That's not that far, and then we'll do the Seattle up to Anchorage leg as well. That's a little bit further. That's like 1,400 miles. So that's a good 3-hour leg as well. So it'll be a long stream, but it'll be kind of fun to do a turnaround in Seattle and go back out again. And hopefully, because it's Saturday, we'll have ATC as well. And I hope you guys can join me for it. Lots of hopes, lots of aspirations. You got to have hopes and dreams in this life, right? Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I had fun. And stay tuned to the channel, and we'll have some more videos out there for you soon. Take care, guys, and we'll see you all next time.